Grade 12 Economics. Please welcome Mr. Mhlongo. I'm back here with you on a revision session for paper 1. Our paper 1 consists of macroeconomics as well as economic pursuits. So please join me. Let's see what we have for you. The lesson is mainly about revision. It will also unpack the manner at which you should attempt to answer questions. And the lesson will also give some examples of some questions from previous question papers, and you will see how we are supposed to attempt to answer those questions in case you come across such in the examination. The following are the lesson objectives. This is a revision session or lesson which shows a question paper structure, trains you as candidates on how to approach sections of the question paper, brings forward some examples of questions, e.g. from lower order, middle order up to higher order. So as for the pre-knowledge, you have been taught all macroeconomics topics as well as economic pursuits topic. So this is the structure and classification of topics per paper. So we call this one the question paper structure. Paper 1 equals 2 or is out of 150 marks and is 2 hours. Topics in there. Under macroeconomics, we have circular flow, business cycles, the public sector, and the foreign exchange market. These are topics under macroeconomics. And remember, all of these topics will be a part of section A, which is question 1, section B, which is question 2, also a part of question 4, as well as question 5, which is your essay. And then economic pursuit questions. They include protectionism and free trade, growth and development, industrial development policies, as well as economic and social indicators. These topics also are a part of your examination. They will be a part of section A, which is question 1. Section B in question 3, the entire question 3 will be having economic pursuit questions. And then a part of question 4, where we mix both the macro and pursuits. Also, question 6 in section C is also a part of economic pursuits. As we continue, details on the question paper. And then the paper will be having 6 questions divided into 3 sections. We have section A, which is question 1. It's compulsory. There's no choice in there. As you answer or respond to your question paper, section A is compulsory out of 30 marks and you must answer it. Section B consists of 3 questions where you have a choice now. We have question 2, question 3, and question 4. But then expectations are you choose 2 questions out of the 3. You answer 2. So 2 to 4, of which the candidate must choose only 2 questions. So you answer only 2, you don't answer everything. And then section C consists of 2 questions and you choose only 1 question. We have question 5 and question 6, whereby you choose 1 question to answer. Each question consists of 40 marks. And then section A structure or layout. Remember I said it's compulsory, it's 30 marks. So most of you undermine section A and you end up getting less marks in there. It is very important that you treat each section as an important section. None of these sections is unnecessary, because if you can check section A consists of 30 marks, and that 30 marks is very important for you to pass your examination. So it's very important that you give enough time as you answer section A. Stop guessing. Stop going into the exam room knowing answers while you don't even know the question paper. Ensure that you analyze everything given to you before you give an answer. It is very important. So in 1.1, we have a multiple choice, which is the lower order. It consists of 4 options given. There is a statement and 4 options given. So we have 8 items. Each item is 2 marks. 2 marks, then you work out of 16 marks in 1.1. So it's very important that you grab that 16 marks and put them into your bag. And then 1.2 matching items, you are given column A and column B in there. And it's also the lower order. Each answer is 1 mark. So you work out of 8 marks. It is achievable. It is highly possible that you get these 8 marks. The main important thing is that you don't guess, because it is highly possible that if you get one answer wrong in 1.2, you are getting the second one wrong, because you take an option for maybe 1.2.1, you put it 1.2.3, then you get to be wrong twice. So it's very important to be careful. Use what you call elimination method by studying what you know, and then what is confusing you do it once you see that you have exhausted what you clearly know about that particular section. And then 1.3, give 10. This one is a lower order also. You are given the definition, you provide the concept in there. This one doesn't need much of strategy. It is the matter of knowing your concepts. Remember, for you to get it easier, your mind the gap at the beginning of each topic, there are definitions in there that are believed to be important. So if you can work around that, it will be easy for you to remember those definitions or remember those concepts that will be defined. It is 6 marks, and then all in all, you will be working out of 30 marks. So to do yourself a favor, ensure that you get a total or you don't get below 25 marks. That can assist you if ever maybe you happen to struggle along section B and section C. You already have 25 marks to 30 in the pocket. Please treat section A with dignity, give it time it deserves, and then get those marks, because every mark counts. Not only an essay mark is important. I know you guys prioritize essays and neglect section A. The difference here is only 10 marks. So ensure that you accumulate marks, score these marks in section A, and move to the section B or section C. Do not be under pressure. Don't see your peers starting with section C and also you start there while you have nothing to offer that much. Ensure that you work according to your strength, because this is all about you at the end of everything. Multiple choice, the strategy now. How can you score more marks? Read the statement with understanding and have an answer in your mind. After that, look for that answer within 4 given options. So it is very important that when you read the question statement in there, you provoke the answer in your mind. Then you look for that particular answer in there. Do not just look for the answer while you don't even understand the statement. Let the understanding give you an option to say, this is the possible answer. As you look in the given options, you simply grab it there. Be precise when choosing an answer, because between given options, one answer is correct and one is close, as they belong to the same or similar content. So be very careful as you choose. Choose the correct answer, not the related answer. Do not guess an answer. Contextualize or classify given options to the statement. Then you can get it right. Do not leave anything unattended. Provide all answers. Most of you, sometimes you simply leave a certain option unattended because maybe you wanted to rush somewhere. When you come back, you don't have time, and then you don't complete. Ensure that every numbering have an answer provided in there. Do not write one answer on top of another. Rather scratch out the incorrect answer and write the correct answer. Do not give options. Don't say C or B. It will be wrong. Just give the correct answer. If ever you have given the wrong answer initial, scratch it like a scratch here, then you write the correct answer. Total marks will be 16. So these are simply examples on how you can attempt. Remember here, you simply write the numbering. It is 1.1.1 to 1.1.8, and then our letters are A up to D. It will be a surprise if you come across some answers, maybe being being E, F, G, because remember in 1.1, our options are up to D. Even if you come in with your guess answers, you should not go beyond D, because it ends at D. 1.1.1, the circular flow model of an open economy shows the functioning of an economy that includes the dash sector. So what should you do now? You see circular flow model of an open economy. Now, in your mind, you remember an open economy has a foreign sector. So it is easy for you to go down and look for the answer to see if you have a foreign sector. So we have a public, a business, foreign, and domestic. Then let's see the given option. It is the foreign sector. So as you read the statement, provoke the answer. Then you go and look for the answer, because we have studied. A diagram that shows expansion and contraction periods of economic activity is called dash cycle. So in that case, you remember that there is a business cycle in there that shows the increase and the decrease, the upswing and downswings. So you simply go down and check if there is any business cycle in given options. So we have A, business cycle, B, economic, C, productivity, and D, inflationary. So let's see what is given. A is a business cycle, so it becomes correct. And then we go further. Removal of unnecessary restrictions by legislation is known as. So you go back into your content. Whenever the government removes some unnecessary laws and regulations within the market, then what do we call that? You contextualize. You go straight maybe to a supply side approach in the or supply side policies in your new economic paradigm. You discover the regulation in your mind. Then you go down and look for deregulation. Let's see, A, regulation, B, deregulation, C, centralization, D, decentralization. And then your answer is deregulation. So this is the content knowledge, just that it is presented in a manner that the answer is provided in front of your eyes. And then the term used to compare a country's export prices with its import prices by means of indices is called the dash. The balance of payments, terms of trade, balance of trade, exchange rate. So you know that when we compare export prices to the index of import prices, something is happening there. What is it? You look for terms of trade because we have done the content, you know. So just look for terms of trade. Let's see if you come up. Yes, terms of trade are there and they are correct. So always try to link before you look for the answer. Let the statement give you a possible answer before you look for it. And then an example of social indicator is dash. Remember, you know the list of social indicators. So given these options, you know about 6 of them. Let's see, education, business confidence, employment, production. Then we go straight and look for any social indicator in there, which will be education, and education becomes correct for you. And then an increase in real value of production in a country is known as economic dash. So value of production, meaning economic activities or productive capacity of the country. Then you look for the response, development, growth, integration, and then prosperity. And then you know the increase in productive capacity in the country. Then you go straight and choose economic growth. A strategy that failed in its objective to halve poverty and unemployment by 2014 is, then you go straight to economic pursuit. You check which strategy that was given a chance, which did not succeed on reducing unemployment and poverty in South Africa. You know objectives that were laid out in those policies. NGP, RDP, ASGISA, and also NDP. Then you check, you know your content, we have covered it. You simply go straight and choose the answer where there is an ASGISA, Accelerated and Shared Growth Initiative for South Africa. And then we continue. A purpose-built industrial estate, physical enclosed and linked to an international harbor or airport is known as A or N. So you go straight to industrial development, you check purposely built. No, those are IDZs. You check a corridor, special economic zones, industrial development zone, integrated development plan. Then let's see, you have industrial development zone being correct. You get your 16/16. You go further to 1.2, matching items. No descriptions for column A before searching for corresponding options. Meaning, if you read the column A concept, you must have an idea of the meaning or of the definition so that you simply pick it up in there. It becomes easy. This allows you to simply pick the correct answer in column B. And always start with answers you know. Avoid answering everything in a sequence. Start with answers that you are sure they are correct, number them correct, and write them as being correct. After that, you can see remaining options. If we have 3 remaining options, then you can start working around them precisely until you get the correct answer. But if you simply answer even answers that you are not sure of them, you will come across taking wrong answers into wrong numbering, and then you get it wrong. Because remember, in this kind of question, if you take an answer that is wrong, putting in a certain number that is wrong, you are likely to get 2 answers wrong at the same time. Use elimination method, eliminate answers you know and show that they are correct. Thereafter, concentrate on the remaining options. Contextualize the remaining options to the column A before you get an answer. Do not leave any space. Ensure that you answer everything. It's out of 8 marks. It's also easily achievable. It's highly possible that you can get 8 over 8 in there. And then we are given from 1.2.1 up to 1.2.8. So let's see. 1.2.1, it's E. So monetary policy, approach taken by the country's central bank to influence spending in the economy. It is indeed correct. And then we look at 1.2.2, it's I. Marginal propensity to consume, proportion of that disposable income that household spend. And then let's look. 1.2.3, it's A. Terms of trade, compares export prices with import prices. It's correct. And then 1.2.4, we have export promotion. It's H. Trade policy that promotes the manufacturing of local product for foreign markets. It's indeed correct. And then we go on 1.2.5. Which is open market transaction, that is the buying and selling of government securities to influence the money supply. It is correct. And then 1.2.6 is G. 1.2.6 is incentive. So let's see G. Strategies used to encourage production. It is indeed correct. And then 1.2.7, we have a C. Let's see, 1.2.7 is trade liberalization. So our C says a removal of trade barriers. It's correct again. And then 1.2.8 is F. Consumer price index. Let's see F measures headline inflation. So it becomes easier for you to respond in this kind of the question because answers are in front of you. It's the matter of you linking the content together. It becomes then a simple thing to get 8 over 8. And then we continue. Descriptions in 1.3. No terminology per topic or per chapter. Use mind the gap definitions given at the beginning of each topic. Do weekly definition tests to improve your performance in section A. Don't use abbreviations and acronyms when providing concepts. Do not leave anything unattended. This one is very important. Even in the instructions, it's given there in 1.3. Do not use abbreviations. They are not acceptable. You can give it being correct, but it will be wrong because it is not marked. Abbreviations are not marked. We only mark the full concept. So here we are giving one term. Give one term for each of the following descriptions. No abbreviations or acronyms will be accepted. Please note that because you find that you know the answer, but you are lazy to write it in full, then you get it wrong. The owners of factors of production in the economy, a summary of the values of different leading indicators into a single value, a statement of the country's trade and the financial transaction with the rest of the world. And then we continue. The organization that promotes peace and harmony between world countries, the main source of revenues for the state, and then funding given to support the relocation of machinery and equipment by foreign direct investments. And then let's see given options. We have household or consumer, the composite indicators, the balance of payment, not BOP. BOP is not given any credit because it is a part of abbreviation. And then United Nations, UN is wrong, but United Nations is correct. Personal income tax or income tax or tax, and then foreign investment grant. Then here, if you say FIG, it becomes wrong because now we are abbreviating. So you need to ensure that you write it in full with, and that will always give you 6 marks. After that, you have your 30 over 30. You move further to the next section. Section B, answer 2 questions in this section. Total is 80 marks. So there is a very important, strategy that you need to make use of here. Do not just follow the question and answer. It will be displayed to you. 1 question per main topic and 1 combination questions between 2 main topics, 50-50. Short items, 2.1.1, 2.1.2. Then we have 4 marks for this. And then 2.2, 2.3. That's why you have data response. It consists of 10 marks, 10 marks. And then it becomes 20 marks per question. And then 2.4, a single question, which is the middle order, e.g. explain, discuss, distinguish, differentiate between, draw the graph, etc. So in this case, that's why you have to briefly discuss in there, or draw the graph and explain or interpret. And then 2.5, a single question, which is the higher order, e.g. With these kinds of how question, why, evaluate. So in this case, it is very important also that you understand what you are supposed to do as you attempt to answer the question. It is very important that you look at mark allocation, especially you look at 2.4. In there is 8 marks. You must provide 4 full sentences. In fact, Do not list, because if you are listing, you will be getting only 2 marks for mere listing. 2.5 also the same thing will apply. You need to ensure that you provide marks according to the question. If ever you evaluate, to look at the failure and the success. So ensure that you divide it into 2 so that you can accumulate your marks easily. And also in this kind of the question, remember it's an open question where we need your perspective. We need your understanding of economics in the real world. Ensure that you apply very easy, and ensure that you write in full sentences for you to get the score, or for you to get full marks in this section. So choose SMART in section B. Calculating your guaranteed marks is a major technique to make a right choice of question in section B. Ensure that you have a very, very good choice in there. Do not just choose the question. Some people have the belief that question 2 is always easy. You choose question 2 while the question 2 is not as easy as question 3 and 4. So you need to use what we call an opportunity cost. Calculate marks that you believe you will achieve per question in section B before you make a choice, because you find yourself answering all questions in section B, and then you are wasting your time to the point that you will never afford to answer section C, because you have wasted much time answering all questions in section B, for which is wrong. Ensure that you calculate your marks at the given time to plan for your study. As you do that, it will allow you to choose according to marks that you believe you will score or achieve. Step 1. First 4 marks or questions help you for ice breaking. You know that 2.1.1, 2.1.2. 2.1.1 is the lower order you list. And then 2.1.2, 3.1.2, 4.1.2. That's a part of middle order, whereby you answer a question in an explanation. So you link some concept in there that have been asked, and then you get it answered. And then step number 2, read data response question while highlighting main points. Then read questions. The higher are the achievable marks, the greater is the advantage of you choosing the question. As you read the data response, underline and highlight those key points in there. Avoid reading the question and looking for the answer. If you do that, you will be picking the data response for the entire data response, and that will be wrong. We know that 99.9%, only 2 options. It can be 2.2.1, 2.2, 2.2.2. 3.2.1, 3.2 up to 4. In there, we know that those answers, it's highly possible that we discover them in the given data response, but going from the description or definition in 2.2.3, then it is highly impossible that we get an answer in the data response. You need to link the content and define the concept. So avoid copying the data response, because you will be getting marks, you will be getting it wrong. You know exactly those 1 marks are the lower order. They can easily be identified, or they are simply general for the content. So ensure that you don't copy data response where unnecessary. Read the second data response while underlining main points when reading questions. And then the higher are the achievable marks, the greater the opportunity for you to choose that particular question. And then we'll continue. Step 4, read your first 8 marks question with understanding and arrange your answers. Ensure that in your mind you arrange how you will answer those questions in maybe 2.4. And then you read 2.5 also. Read your second 8 marks questions with understanding, and arrange the manner in which you can answer. That will allow you to choose the question. Do not choose the question just because 2.1.1 is easy for you, then you choose the question. You will find that those data response questions are not easy for you. And then 8 marks questions are also not easy for you. So you will be answering out of 4 marks, which is 2.1, 2.1. or 3.1 or 4.1. Always ensure that you use what we call an opportunity cost that was taught to you. Ensure that the question that will give you more marks is the one that is chosen, to avoid answering all questions. Because now if you answer all questions, the marker will only choose maybe first 2 questions, then you find yourself not being marked, and also have compromised the time for answering in section C. Calculate all marks and move to the next question. That will allow you to choose easily. So these are just some examples on how you can score marks. Be able to list in the lower order there 2.1.1, 3.1.1 and 4.1.1. Be able to list. This question is all about remembering, because it simply say mention. You are required to list 2. Be very careful of this. You list 2. So this is the question. Give 2 examples of leakages. We say taxes and savings, and then we have provided 3 of them. That means we are not going to mark this one. We only mark the first 2. Also, you need to be careful of easy questions. If questions are very easy, you get an early excitement to the point that you answer it wrong. Some candidate can simply bring here, give 2 examples of leakages. You simply mention maybe investment spending. It's now wrong because of early excitement. You did not take time to simply answer the question. You simply answered because you believe you know this one. Yes, you know, but you simply answer it wrong because of early excitement. Be careful when you answer each and every question, regardless of how easy or difficult. Ensure that you give it whatever it's supposed to get and get it correct. Even check your answers after you have written, because at times you simply make a very light mistake by writing a leakage instead of injection, or injection instead of a leakage. And then name any 2 member countries of BRICS trade protocol. And then we have 5 of them: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. We mark these 2. So avoid giving extra answers that are unnecessary, because it's time consuming also. Name 2 financial markets. Name 2 financial markets in the circular flow. Then we have the money market and capital market. So you add this one. Now it gets to be out, because now we needed only 2. Give any 2 redress policies that South Africa used since 1994. There are so many, but provide the 2 that is required. For instance, RDP, Reconstruction and Development Program, as well as Black Economic Empowerment, which is BE. And then the rest now it's extra. You provide only 2 that is required. And then the Migley order now. This will be 2.1.2, 3.1.2, and 4.1.2. Be able to apply the content. It is very important that you understand the question before attempting to answer, because in there are 2 concepts that are very much important, and a certain verb that will be giving you an idea on the question. Then if you can underline those 3, you will be able to understand the question before you answer. Understand the question before attempting to answer. Relate concept on the question statement, and be mindful of action verb that is there. Should be an increase or decrease. Be very careful of that, because it gives you a glimpse on how you should be answering the question. And then these answers must be provided in full sentences. We don't see here examples. What effect will the decrease in the income levels underlined have on international trade? So now the decrease in the income level have on the international trade. You need to be very careful also. This decrease is very important, because it gives you what will be happening on the concept, which is the income level. And then what are we comparing it? What are we looking at? The international trade. Then a decrease in the income level implies less money to spend on goods and services internationally. So if ever the income is decreasing, then there will be less money available to spend international. Therefore, what will happen? A decrease in income levels will decrease the demand for both domestically and internationally produced goods and services, which will reduce international trade. So it is very important that you link. Learners must show the link between these concepts that are provided. Why do developed countries favor the idea of free trade? So now, developed countries, they favor the idea of the free trade. Link this before you attempt to respond. So it is very important that you understand the theory behind the developed countries, and then you understand also the effect of free trade within the economy. Free trade increases competition, and this encourages innovation, especially in developed countries that have the know-how, meaning they have all those basic resources. So they always favor the free trade because they have basic resources that are well innovative and creative. And then developed countries have free access to resource worldwide needed for mass production in expanded markets. Also, developed countries benefit from trade agreement with poor countries. So they always take an advantage by creating some trade protocols and agreements with the developing countries or poor countries. Free trade reduces regulations on the production of labor, environment, and consumers. Free trade increases the power of multinationals. We know that multinational or strategic industries will always benefit because they have a power of being very competitive as compared to those infant industries of developing countries. How can SMMEs support economic growth? So now we check SMMEs. How can they simply have an impact or improve economic growth in a positive manner? So you have linked already, then you have to answer the question. Increasing productive capacity in manufacturing, creating employment opportunities for structurally unemployed people, increasing competition in the economy, increasing opportunities for exports by local businesses, increase entrepreneurial skills that will lead to higher production and investment. So what matters the most here is for you to understand the question and link those basic terms in there and also the verb, so that you will be able to answer the question. Understanding is the key. How can indirect subsidies benefit the export producer? Indirect subsidies. So now you need to go back. You know the theory behind indirect subsidies, and then you know the benefits of indirect subsidies to exporters. Then it is very easy for you to simply write the answer down. The export producer can benefit by receiving refunds on the import tariffs tax, tax rebates or tax concession or tax exemptions. Production costs will decrease, resulting to the increased profits, increased ability to compete in the foreign markets, increase also exports. Again, it's all about linking in there for you to attempt to answer the question. You might know the theory and the content, but if you are not able to link, you will answer it wrong. Ensure that you are able to link to get it correct. How can the South African Reserve Bank use the repurchase rate to stimulate the underperforming economy? So now we go straight. How can South African Reserve Bank use repurchase rate to stimulate underperforming economy? Now, you know that we should be applying expansionary monetary policy. So you know the repo rate. You know that it can be used to stimulate underperforming economy if ever we apply expansionary monetary policy. So let's see the action. South African Reserve Bank can decrease repurchase rate to make credit more affordable in the financial institutions, which can increase money supply and increase spending in the economy. And then we continue again. Why should South Africa comply with international standardization when compiling indicators? Now, you know that you go straight to the social and economic indicators. You consider these three international organizations, which is the World Bank, United Nations, and IMF, International Monetary Fund. You check that South Africa is complying. It provides information on their database so that South Africa can easily be measured with other world countries in terms of growth and development. Then why should that be done? Let's see. Complying with international standardization helps South Africa to receive funds to finance their budget and deficits from the World Bank, United Nations, and International Monetary Fund. As they upload or they make provision of the information on indicators, it tends to be easy for this organization to simply give them funding whenever they deserve and whenever they are in need, because they can see the performance of their economic or social variables. And then section B, data response. So in this case, what should be done? I have explained before that you need to read the data response, underlining the basic points in there. So these are just examples of data response questions, and then also how you should attempt to answer. So balance of payments, current account improves. So in this data response, we're given here an information. South Africa's current account deficit narrowed in the fourth quarter last year. It is the first time it reached the level of 1.7% of the GDP in nearly 6 years. And then the improvement in the trade balance of 2016 impacted positively on the current account. So there was an improvement. The trade balance improved from deficit of 38 billion in 2015 to surplus of 15 billion in 2016. This resulted in the balance of payments deficit being reduced from 166 billion to 76 billion in 2016. Adapted from News 24 August 2017. And then 4.2.1 in there. According to the extract above, what was the deficit on the balance of payments in 2016? It is there, you identify. In the extract above, identify the term that calculates the difference between goods imported and goods exported. It is there, and then you identify. And then also, briefly describe the term balance of payment. Then from here, expect no answer from data response. It's highly impossible, 99.9%, it's impossible that you get a response of this nature in there being given. So now you provide your content knowledge. Now, please avoid copying data response in this kind of the question going down, because it is impossible, let me say highly impossible for you to get an answer in there. So, and then the next question, what is the significance of balance on current account? And then the last one, how can the surplus on the balance of payment affect South African economy positively? And then let's look at the possible responses. So we have an answer which is 76 billion as what we call a deficit, and then identify the term is the balance of trade or trade balance. Briefly describe the term balance of payment. Then even if you check the data response, you will never come across this definition, meaning you cannot discover the definition provided in there. It's highly impossible. Ensure that you know your content. And then a systematic book of record that capture all countries' transaction with other world countries. So any other correct response is accepted in this case. And then what is the significance of balance on current account? It gives an indication whether a country is living within its means, indication of surplus or deficit. And then how can the surplus on the balance of payment affect the South African economy positively? And then also be mindful positively. Some of you might answer in a negative manner here, but we look at the positive because it's provided. So the surplus in the balance of payments can affect the economy positively by reaching production potential of the country, building the reserves of the country due to surplus, and then investing more in infrastructure, increase value of the rand, attracting more foreign direct investments, reducing tax burden due to less money borrowed to pay off a public debt, and then stimulating economic growth and create job opportunities. Any other correct relevant response was given marks in here. It's 4 marks. And then this is the second data response. Be able to analyze, have those skills to analyze here. Let's look. You are given a certain method of calculating GDP. You see compensation for employees, net operating surplus, then you know it's an income method. And then you check, all variables are given here. But then now you see it's adapted from South African Reserve Bank Quarterly Bulletin, June 2016. And then you also keep that in your mind. You simply highlight this. Also, you check the highest contributor within these components here of the income method. You check the most contributed factor here is compensation for employees with 1,892,721. Then go straight and answer those questions now. Name the method used to calculate GDP here. It's an income method it's given. And then identify the component with the highest contribution into the GDP at the factor cost. It's compensation for employees with 1,892,721. Briefly describe the concept of gross domestic product. Then you define total value of all final goods and services produced within the country at the given period of time. That is 2 marks. You can see that this definition is not provided in there. And then also, what is the main purpose of subsidies on production? It is not given in the data response in there. To reduce the cost of production, to encourage the production for exports, subsidies will benefit consumer to demand more goods and services since the selling price will be reduced or will decrease, increase the production of certain goods. So these answers that I'm busy with now are not in the data response. So it's very important for you to be mindful that copying the data response is wrong. In 2.2.3 going down, 3.2.3 or 3.3.3, it's wrong up to question 4. And then calculate the compensation for employees, the consumption on fixed capital as a percentage of the GDP at factor cost. Show all calculations. Now you have to calculate consumption on fixed capital divided by GDP at factor cost times 100/1. So you take the value of consumption on fixed capital, 560,397 divided by GDP at factor cost, which is 3,518,318. Then multiply by 100. You get your 15,93 or you get your 16. Show all calculations to get 4 marks. Avoid giving the answer only because you might end up getting 1 mark or 2 marks if ever it's allocated for 2 marks. And then this is the second data response, but because we have shown how it should be done in the under income method, it is the same manner that it should be conducted here in the production method. You should be careful, analyze the given data response. You can see this one is a production method, so simply mention is a production method, then you can keep on evaluating the highest contributor, etc. And that will give you an opportunity to do what? To answer questions in this section. So we won't be dwelling on this one because we have already shown how it's answered in section B using income method. And then this is another data response. In here, study diagram below and answer questions that follow from 2019 June examination. So here you are given the circular flow, and this circular flow shows goods and services. It shows goods and services, household are there, product markets are there, and then also businesses and factor market. We have expenditure revenue, production factors flowing in there. So we are simply showing the flow of goods and services within the economy, also the flow of income in there. Let's see what is given in there. What is depicted by the diagram above. So it is the circular flow model. We know a 2-sector model economy or even the closed economy. And then identify one example of real flow. factors of production of goods and services. Briefly describe the term product market, then we know is the market where final goods and services, consumer goods and services are traded, or final goods and services are traded. They are sold or bought. That is 2 marks. And then we'll go further. What could the Minister of Finance do to promote economic activities in South Africa? Then let's see, creating more confidence in macroeconomic policies between all role players in the economy, and then developing an investor-friendly legislation, availing opportunities for all with capabilities to participate in, e.g. SMMEs, and then overseeing a South African economy operating in a global economy rather than closed economy, meaning allowing the South Africa to trade with other world countries easily and export their goods, making laws and legislation that permit participation in the economy, also conduct research on what needs to be done to promote the economy. So these were possible answers. How can foreign direct investment, FDI, influence national income? An increase in FDI will influence national income by investing more, an injection into the circular flow, which will increase production, increase employment opportunities that will result to greater demand for goods and services, and then increase in aggregate demand, or the multiplier effect. So this is how you're supposed to respond. Ensure that you are fully aware of, we don't pick answers from data response. We contextualize the given data response to the particular topic, and then we answer. It becomes easy if you do so. And then DBA May 2019 study the table below and answer questions that follow. Budget Speech 2018, changes in indirect taxes. So here you have carbon tax, we have estate duty, we have tax on luxury goods, and then increase in tax rates. The price of plastic bag increased by 50% to 20 cents per bag, and then increased by 25% for estate greater than 30 million, that is estate duty. And then the ad valorem excise duty on luxury goods, such as motor vehicles, increased from 7% to 9%, adapted from the budget speech of 2018. And then let's see which ministry of or department is responsible for presentation of the national budget. So it is not given in there, but then because it is in general, you know it's a Department of Finance. Name any one form of direct tax payable to the state, and then income tax, capital gains tax, property tax, or company tax, or corporate tax. Briefly describe the term budget. Various definitions can be provided as long as they are relevant. So a budget is a document that's showing anticipated revenue and estimated expenditure for a specific period. And then how will the increase in carbon tax on plastic bags benefit the economy? It will reduce environmental pollution, and then it will increase government revenues. And then we continue. Briefly describe the extent to which the government addresses economic equity in South Africa. Let's look now. Redistribution wealth through progressive tax system, making higher income earners to pay more tax and lower income earners paying less, that is 2 marks. Providing most acquired free social services, e.g. education, primary healthcare, free tertiary education, provision of housing and utilities to the poorest part of the community. Providing platform for all gender and social boundaries to be crossed. So these are possible answers for this data response. You remember that if ever is 4 marks, we provide 2 answers. Those 2 answers should be in full sentences. Avoid listing so that you can accumulate your marks and get 4/4. And then briefly describe the extent. We continue. Increasing VAT by 1%, affecting the poor in a more serious way compared to other income groups. Introducing the carbon tax, reduce the individual disposable income and the company profits. And then you're also giving data response in here from DBE 2020 November examination that talks of business cycles, climate conditions resulting in drought and floods, demand and supply policies, consumer changing spending patterns. So you simply link this. These are exogenous factors. These are a part of endogenous factors. And then we talk about demand side and supply side policies, which is economic paradigm. Identify exogenous reasons for business cycles in the information above. A climate condition resulting into the drought. So a climate condition, and then drought. And then name any one type of business cycle, and then you simply mention it's occasion, juggler, closeness, and contractive. None of them are there. That's why I said you can get answers in data response, but it's also possible that you don't get these answers in there because they are easy and a part of the lower order. You can simply be required to name what is not in the data response. Briefly describe the term business cycle, successive periods of increase and decreasing of economic activities. There are so many definitions they can provide as long as they go with up fluctuations or upswings and downswings. Why does the endogenous school of thought encourage government intervention in the economy? You remember that endogenous are saying government should intervene. Markets are unstable, therefore government should intervene in the economic processes to stabilize the economy or smooth out the peaks and troughs. The price mechanism failed to coordinate supply and demand in the product and factor market. How can the Reserve Bank use demand-side policy to dampen, contract the economy? Meaning, the economy is overheating, it should be reduced now. A Reserve Bank will use a restrictionary monetary policy to reduce economic activity or reduce inflation. Now, look at this, you must be careful. If the question says, how can the Reserve Bank? You be mindful, it's a monetary policy to be used, it's not the fiscal policy. Reserve Bank cannot make use of fiscal. Only the government or Minister of Finance or Department of Finance can use fiscal policy. But Reserve Bank mainly focus on using what you call the monetary policy. So you need to be very, very careful as you attempt to answer this question. They might be easy for you, but you make a mistake by choosing the fiscal policy in this case, knowing exactly that Reserve Bank is only using the monetary policy. So as you respond, be careful, ensure that you use the relevant context as you answer questions. Reserve Bank will use restrictionary monetary policy to reduce economic activity and reduce inflation. Use the monetary policy to increase the interest rate and to decrease the quantity of money or money supply in the economy or in circulation. Increases cash reserves requirement, which result to banks having less money to lend, so there will be less liquidity. Selling government bonds to banks to reduce liquidity, open market transactions, which is known as quantitative easing. Pays to bank to limit the amount of credit given to consumers, which is known as moral persuasion. South African Reserve Bank could temporarily intervene by buying or selling foreign currency to stabilize the value of the rand. So it's very important that you note, you need to make use of monetary policy because we are talking about South African Reserve Bank. And then this is the balance of payment given into you. Study the table below and other questions that follow. Balance of payment of 2018, rand in millions. So here, you were given all amounts in here. There's nothing that is labeled A or B in terms of numbers, but then labeling is here on variables. Merchandise export, net gold export, service receipts, income receipts, less merchandise import, payment for services, and then income payments. Then you note what is missing in there for you to have a complete current account. And then going down, balance on current account is given in the capital transfer account is given, net lending to borrowings from the rest of the world then is given. Now let's see, it's adapted from South African Reserve Bank quarterly benefit, bulletin of March 2019. Let's look at questions. Which item in the current account is unique to South Africa? Net gold export is unique. Why is it unique? Because South Africa is the main exporter of gold into the entire world. So it becomes unique because we don't have a net, because we don't import the gold, but we export. Remember, we discover net when we take our gold and subtract, we take exported gold minus imported gold. So in that case, we'll get a net. So in this case, the net becomes unique in South Africa because we don't mainly import gold, but we export gold as a raw material. Name the missing item A from the current account in the table above. It's a current transfers. Briefly describe the term capital transfer account. It is the net amount and includes all transaction and grants relating to the ownership of fixed asset, debt forgiveness, and the value of household and personal effects of and financial claims and liabilities of migrants. So in this case, remember, whenever a South African is leaving the country, a person might simply sell his or her own assets and move to the foreign country. As the person moves, the person will be moving with his money as a part of the capital. Then it will be regarded as a capital transfer and will be subtracted in the capital transfer account as what we call an asset. We subtract but call it an asset because it's an outflow. However, in future, the future benefits of that particular capital will be enjoyed in South Africa as person will be returning back into the country. That's why we call it an asset. And also a foreign person coming into the country, bringing that money as a part of capital transfer. The money will be added in the capital transfer account and be regarded as what we call a liability. Why liability? A liability because the money that is flown into the country will be enjoyed back. All benefits of the money will be enjoyed back in the country of origin in the future. So it's a liability because it's here to drain money in South Africa, and all benefits will be flowing back to the country of origin. Explain one factor that will influence demand to reduce the deficit in the balance of payments. An increase in the repo rate affect interest rate and lead to decrease in import spending. We know that if ever repo rate have been increased, people will find it difficult to take loans in commercial banks because it will be more expensive. Therefore, there will be less spending on local goods and as well as imported goods and services. Government incentives are applied to substitute imports. And then import control or tariffs and quotas reduce the demand for what? For imported goods and services. Certain exchange rate controls have been retained by the central bank to ration foreign exchange and led to a decrease in the demand. If ever the Reserve Bank intervened by imposing foreign exchange control, that will mean most of people that need South African rand should apply via Reserve Bank, and they will be approved. So that make it difficult for them to access local currencies so that they can demand goods and services, or they'll make it difficult for them to access foreign currencies for them to import goods and services from other countries. Determine the value of trade balance. Show all calculations. Merchandise export plus net gold export. Remember, both of these ones are positive. We add them minus merchandise imports. So we subtract imports because remember, they are here to drain cash. As they flow in, money will be going out of the economy. Therefore, we come across 24 million and then 281. So, and then let's continue with the next data response. In here, we go straight to economic pursuit. Economic indicators we are given here: population growth, GDP at constant prices, real GDP per capita, real GDP growth in terms of percentage, unemployment in percentage, inflation, average exchange rate, and then in South African rand. So adapted from South African Reserve Bank quarterly bulletin of 2019. So in this case, we are given indicators, social and economic indicators. So let's say the trends is 2016, 2017, 2018. And then you go straight and check after analyzing the whole data here. Let's check our questions. Identify the economic indicator that reflect average earnings for each person in the country. You were given in the GDP per capita, so you simply take it, it gives you 1 mark. Name one international institution that requires South Africa to standardize their economic indicators. It is not given in the data response, but because it is the question in general, then it is believed that you can get it correct. United Nations, the World Bank, and International Monetary Fund. And then briefly describe the term real gross domestic product. So a real gross domestic product is the total value of all final goods and services produced within the country, within the country where changes in price level or inflation have been taken into account. Remember, real GDP, that's when inflation has been removed. We talk about GDP at constant prices in there. Inflation effect has been removed. Then we have a real GDP. That means nominal GDP has been converted to the real GDP, which is believed to be a GDP deflator. How is the unemployment rate determined in the country? So the number of unemployed people are expressed as a percentage of labor force or economically active population. Number of unemployed people divided by economically active population or labor force multiplied by 100. Then you get your 2 marks. Why is it necessary for South Africa to standardize its economic indicators according to international requirements? Then let's check. It is important that the country should have the ability to compete successfully internationally and sustain improvements in the real output and wealth. And then we continue. South African economy is increasingly involved in the world market through exports and imports, experiencing high levels of uncertainty in the global environment, which hold back higher growth. So it is very important for the country to standardize or to simply comply with those indicators in the global market, with those with the benchmark that is set by the what you call international organizations. So when they compile their social and economic indicators, they should always comply with the standard that have been set or the benchmark that have been set, so that it can be easy for them to be comparable abroad with other world countries, because they've been exposed into the global market or international market in terms of exports and imports. And then various international organizations set specifications on how indicators should be compiled, which make it easy to compare figures similarly compiled. And then the System of National Account (SNA) are set according to the specifications set by United Nations. South Africa can only benefit from these international organizations if indicators are readily available, e.g., bridging finance from IMF, financial development aid and the World Bank, and child aid from United Nations Children Fund, which is UNICEF. And then data response was given again under industrial development or regional development, focused on special economic zones. You have to read the extract before answering the questions. The new special economic zone program originated from developments in the national economic policies and strategies, such as National Industrial Policy Framework. The SEZ policy helped to address challenges with the current industrial development zones, which formed as a part of the Special Development Initiatives, the Foreign Investment Grant, and the Critical Infrastructure Program are some of the financial incentives that promote regional development. And then adapted from Business Report 2019. And then you check your questions. Give one example of special development initiative in South Africa, not mentioned above. So not mentioned above, then now you will have a problem. So we have corridor and ITZ. You need to know the content, because at times the content cannot be discovered in the given data response. Which government department is responsible for industrial development in South Africa? Is the Department of Trade and Industry. And then briefly describe the term industrial development zone. So purposely built industrial estate that are physically enclosed to and linked to international ports or airports. That give you 2 marks. We continue. How does the foreign investment grant help promote regional development in the country? It is a cash incentive to assist foreign investors to cover up startup costs, which encourages the establishment of businesses in the different regions, e.g., the cost of relocating, purchase of new machinery and equipment. We know that it is given to those industries that are relocating from their country to South Africa. As they transport or mobilize their machines and equipment, then they will be given that particular incentive, which is known to be foreign investment grant. Why is the new Special Economic Zone program regarded as an improvement of the current industrial development zones? Remember that the SEZ is very much complex and open as compared to ITZ. It is having a wide scope as compared to ITZ. ITZ mainly attract businesses that are mainly willing to export goods into the global market, while SEZ can attract exporting businesses and locally producing businesses, small businesses, even large businesses. And then we say here, the SEZ involves a broader range of industrial parks, and it does not need to be located near ports. So they can be located anywhere, unlike ITZ that can be located near airports and seaports. And then we continue. The SEZ involve production for export and domestic use. So they involve both exporters and those that are producing for local economy only, whereas ITZ focuses mainly on exports. SEZ offers special tax incentive up to 15%, which is not applicable in the existing ITZ. SEZ lead to more diversified economy because a variety of industries can be attracted to invest in SEZ. So that's why it becomes a different and improvement of existing ITZ. And then we're given the diagram here for the foreign exchange market. You interpret or graph first the market foreign exchange rate, the market for US dollars, and then exchange rate rand to dollar. We can see originally we have the supply and the demand. That is the original equilibrium, whereby the rand equals to 70 rand per dollar. And then on S1, the supply for US dollars increases from S to S1. There we see the rand gaining the strength in there, because now it goes down to 15, meaning we pay 15 rand to afford $1. And then we see on E2 it shifts back again the supply to 19. So let's look here. The possible questions. You need to be mindful that only the supply have shifted, not the demand. Identify the exchange rate system used in the graph above. Identify the foreign currency used in the market above. Briefly describe the term foreign exchange market. What could the South African Reserve Bank do to strengthen the value of the rand against the dollar? Use the above graph to explain the effect of the increase in the supply of US dollar on the rand to dollar exchange rate. 10 marks. Identify it's a free floating exchange rate system, which is simply exchange rate that can fluctuate and depreciate without any government intervention. The value is determined by market forces, demand and supply. And then briefly describe the term. Identify the foreign currency used in the market above is the dollar, US dollar. And then briefly describe the term foreign exchange market. That is the market engaged in buying or selling of foreign currencies. And then what could the South African Reserve Bank do to strengthen the value of the rand? So to strengthen the value of the rand, exchange rate control by letting people apply for rand in South African Reserve Bank, and then also selling gold reserves, decreasing the repo rate to discourage excess demand for rand by the foreign investors. Use the graph above to explain the effect of the increase in the supply of US dollars on the rand versus dollar exchange rate. And then US dollar, it depreciates. And then reason, the supply of dollars increases from SS to S1, and at the equilibrium point move from E to E1. The price for dollar will move from 17 rand to 15 rand, meaning the rand will be gaining the strength, because now South Africans will be paying less to afford $1 than before. They were paying 17 rand, now they're paying 15 rand. Now it's cheaper for us to buy a US dollar. rand appreciates. Reason: quantity demanded of dollars increased from 40 to 50. The equilibrium point moved from E to E1. The price of rands will be moved from 17 rand to 15 rand, meaning we afford more. So it becomes more cheaper for South Africans to afford a dollar. That give you 4 marks, then is 10 marks. And then how to score marks in section B? That is 2.4, 3.4, 4.4 questions. Know your content, because these questions are just the content knowledge which is available in the learning guides. All learning aids are having this content. We don't evaluate here in 2.4, 3.4, 4.4. It is the content knowledge, so you need to know your content. Also, be smart when answering. Use point form but answer in full sentences. Do not list. Ensure that you use point form but in full sentences. Ensure that the whole idea is provided in that particular sentence or that particular point. Give a minimum of 4 full sentences in order to get full marks. Yes, ensure that you give full sentences to get full marks. Do not just list. If you are listing, you will get only 2 marks. Ensure that you provide full sentences as you answer the question. Again, in case they say distinguish between the two, you ensure that you answer for 4 marks in the first, 4 marks in the second. Do not give 8 marks in one item while you also have a second item to discuss. You are misleading yourself. Ensure that it's 4 marks to get your 8 marks. And then 2.5. 3.5, 4.5, this is the higher order. Be able to apply the content into the real world. Remember, this is where you evaluate. It's a critical question here where we need to see the level of your understanding of a certain concept that should be applied in the real world. Evaluation is there where you evaluate either the failure or the success. You give your viewpoint on what can be done to improve such and such in the economy. So critical thinking is a key to answer these questions where you are required to apply your knowledge to a given situation. So this is the weekly order out of 8 marks from November 2021. Briefly discuss exchange rate stability and price stability as macroeconomic objectives. This is the content knowledge under macroeconomic or public sector objective that should be provided in here. So the exchange rate stability, depreciation and appreciation of a currency create uncertainties for producers and traders and should therefore be limited, meaning there should be a stability. The government should manage the economy through monetary and fiscal policies so that the exchange rate remains relatively stable for as long as possible. South Africa pursues stable exchange rates to attract foreign capital. So that means exchange rate should not simply appreciate and depreciate anytime. There should be a stability in there so that uncertainties should not be created in the economy, because if ever there are a lot of uncertainties, that bring negative effect to investors. Price stability. In the mixed economy, prices fluctuate as demand and supply change. The frequent and dramatic changes in the prices affect economic growth and employment. So the government attempt to guard against price stability. Price instability. South Africa price stability means inflation rate between 3 to 6% as an inflation target. Stable prices enable firms and households to predict income and expenditure. Investor confidence is boosted by stable prices and attract foreign direct investments. We know that if ever prices are not stable, they create uncertainties in the economy. Investors tend to be pessimistic about the country's economy because prices are increasing and decreasing over time. So those prices that can be volatile, that can lead to investors losing confidence over the country's economy. So it's very important that prices remain stable, not remaining constant or fixed, but they remain stable to the sense that they don't increase or decrease over time, so that investors can have a hope on the country's economy and they can be able to be attracted to invest in the domestic economy. Explain changes in the demand and interest rate as measured to correct the balance of payment disequilibrium. We know that now we move straight to the BOP disequilibrium. Now we need to correct that disequilibrium by using these two, interest rate as well as the demand. So we talk about long-term policies. In here, we refer to the export promotion and the import substitution. This is when the government intervened by promoting export in the means of giving subsidies and some incentive to local exporting businesses so that there will be more of our goods flowing out of the country, which will lead to maybe a reduced BOP deficit. Import substitution, meaning using some policies that will restrict the entry of imports into the country, such as import quotas, import taxes, and all other measures that can be used to restrict the entry of imports in South Africa. So using those can simply make imports appear more expensive in South Africa. Because of that, local consumers will simply substitute imported goods by demanding locally produced goods and services. That will always lead to less imports flowing into the country as a result. Then that will simply favor the balance of payment in there or balance of trade. And then interest rate. We know that local consumers will always be tempted to take loans if ever interest rate is very, very lower. So if ever interest rate have been reduced, consumers will always borrow money or take loans from commercial banks and spend on goods and services, which can even be imported goods and services. So if interest rates are increased, that reduces money supply in the circulation and result to local consumers having less money. As a result, they will be demanding less of imported goods and services, and that will be a correction of BOP deficit. Domestic demand on imports decreases if interest rates have been increased. Higher interest rate will attract foreign investment to South Africa, which will improve the balance of payments. And then we continue. Calculation now, that is the multiplier. Calculate the change in the aggregate national income if there's an injection of 20 billion you underline in the economy with the marginal propensity to consume to save being 0.3%. Now you note MPC is 0.7%. And then show how multiplier effect could influence the government to create more jobs. Show all calculations. So now, the first thing you need to know here, you must know the value of the multiplier, which will be 3.33. After that, you calculate the multiplier effect, which is regarded as the change in the aggregate national income. So multiplier effect, you say K times J. So the value of the multiplier is 3.3 multiplied by the injection, which is 20 billion. Then your answer will be 6.6, then or 67. Then you get 4 marks for that. Now you need to explain. Remember, this is the question with which is the higher order. It is having 8 marks. Therefore, it is very important for you to show calculations and then explain in words. Now, jobs created there will result to more income and spending in the economy, which will lead to even more jobs being created. Knock-off effect or crowding out effect, and then or spillover effect at times. Government can also decrease taxation, putting more money in the pockets of the consumer. We know that if there's a lower taxation, consumers will be having more money to spend, and that will always create more multiplier effect. And then also the extra money will be spent by the consumer, leading to increased employment opportunities. Remember, if ever consumers are demanding more goods and services, they motivate and encourage producers to produce more. As a result, for the production to increase, businesses should employ more workers. Therefore, employment will be created because of this. Government can decrease company taxes. That might lead to increased investment by businesses focusing on labor-intensive production methods. So we know that if ever the company tax or corporate tax decreases, that simply give an opportunity for businesses to reinvest their profits and then that can lead to job creation also and lead to even more production within the economic activity. And then how can the changes in terms of trade influence South African economy? So now we talk about changes. It did not mention the increase or the decrease. It simply changes, meaning you focus on two perspectives, the increase in terms of trade and the decrease in terms of trade. So an improvement in terms of trade comes as a result of increase in export prices or the decrease in import prices, one of the two. And then an increase in export prices would increase economic welfare in the short run. Remember, in the short run, because if our export prices are increasing, that means there will be more foreign earnings on exported goods and services, or net export earnings will be increasing in the short run, because in future, foreign consumers will not be demanding locally exported goods and or South African exports because now those goods are expensive. They will find goods that they can use to substitute locally produced goods and services or our exports as South Africa. So it is very important to know that in the long run, there will be a problem, but in the short run, they will be increasing in terms of trade. And then a decrease in the import prices would result to a less expenditure or less payment on imports in the short term. Higher export earnings and lower import payments may reduce balance of payment deficit in the short term. Less resources would be used to produce exports to pay for imports. Demand for South African exports may decrease in the long run due to high prices. So, like I've said, if ever our exports are becoming expensive as a country, there will be a lower demand in future or in the long run, meaning that our goods will not be demanded at the higher rate abroad. That will lead to our deficit even increasing further, because as our export prices are more, import prices are lower at times, then we demand more imports, and that will lead to the BOP deficit even stretching. And then we continue with the higher order. A decrease in terms of trade comes as a result of decrease in export prices and increase in import prices. A decrease in export prices would decrease economic welfare in the short term as less revenue is earned with the same or less expenditure on imports. An increase in import prices would result to more expenditure on more payment on imports. But this one is only for the short term, because in the long term, South African may discover a certain market that can supply the same goods at the lower cost. Then they will substitute imported goods and services. Lower export earnings and higher import payments may increase the balance of payment deficit in the short term. More resources would be used to produce export to pay for imports. Demand for South African exports may increase in the long run due to lower prices. So as our prices are lower, there will be more demand. But if ever import prices are higher, there will be less demand in South Africa. Then as consumers, we substitute imports by demanding locally produced goods and services of the same nature. And then we have an essay structure here. We know that this is a structure that is always attached in your examination question paper. You have your introduction for 2 marks. And then you have the body of the essay, which consists of the main part and additional part in there. The main part will be your 26 marks. In there, it is divided into 2. You have the 8 marks question, which is the mere listing and example. And then you have the 18 marks, which is the discussion of the content. And then you have your additional part, which is for 10 marks in there. And then we'll continue to what you call it. We have the conclusion in there. Remember, in the conclusion, it's 2 marks. Then it gives you a total of 40 marks. Remember, introduction is the definition of the concept related to the essay. And then in the main part, you discuss the content and you ensure that you write it in subheadings. And then, in the additional part, still in the body, ensure that question is the higher order. Remember, you need to understand the question before attempting to answer. At the same time, what should you do? You need to ensure that you answer in point forms, and also do not simply duplicate information. Start with answers that you are sure they are correct and go down. Ensure that you answer in full sentences. Avoid listing, because if you list facts, you will get the maximum of 2 marks in there. The rest will not be marked, will be simply clamped together for 2 marks. And then your conclusion, remember, is a higher order. And then as it becomes the higher order structure, you ensure that it should be authentic, and you should be creative. Do not repeat any content from the main part and additional part. And at the same time, do not provide examples. That's why you provide a recommendation on the problem that you have identified in the content on the main part, as well as additional part of the essay. So essay should be arranged in point forms or subheadings. Use point form rather than paragraph to write your essay. Remember, I make introduction, main part, additional part, as well as conclusion. And then remember 18:18 principle, whereby your 8 marks is for mere listing or subheadings as well as examples. And then your 18 is the discussion of the content. And then the content knowledge and the depth discussion of the concept has a maximum of 18 marks. And then you have your mere listing. We continue. Be aware that listing on the additional part will give you maximum of 2 marks in there, because we are allowed to simply write in full sentences, giving the clear response. Ensure that responses you provide are enough to score maximum marks in there. And then arrange your essay in the point form. Your conclusion should not have any repetition of either introduction, main part, or additional part. And then essay conclusion must be the higher order response. Discuss in detail reasons for public sector failure. Link them to typical. Okay, in this case now, these are some of the what you call our essays. Let's see, for macroeconomics, we have some of these essays are equal to 6. So if you are good in macroeconomics, then ensure that you do all of these essays. Then one will come in the examination. So here we will make one example of an essay. It doesn't mean that the essay will appear in the paper tomorrow. We are simply giving you the layout of the essay on how you should respond as you attempt to answer an essay. So these are the essays that you need to prepare for macroeconomics. Discussing detailed markets within the 4-sector model. So in this case, we talk about the circular flow. Those markets are product market or goods market, factor market or resource or input market, and then financial market as well as foreign exchange market. Avoid discussing in the participants. Simply discuss markets as they are. Discuss in detail the new economic paradigm or explain smoothing of the business cycle. So here, remember, this essay is very much open. The examiner might require you to simply discuss the whole new economic paradigm, which will be on the side of demand side as well as supply side. It will be very wide. Also, the examiner can simply say, explain or discuss in detail smoothing business cycle, where you will be using fiscal policy and the monetary policy. So it is very important that you simply ensure that you understand the question statement before attempting to answer. And then discuss in detail the features underpinning forecasting. This question is one of those questions that It's very easy for you to answer. However, if you are not careful enough, you end up answering what is wrong. That is not required. For instance, we had one of questions in this kind of essay saying, discuss in detail all features underpinning forecasting, excluding indicators. Then most of learners for that year initially wrote economic indicators. So that made them to get it wrong, because the question statement was continuing to say excluding indicators. So ensure that you read the question statement thoroughly. Discuss in detail all features underpinning forecasting, excluding indicators. That's when now you will have a problem, because you start by answering on indicators and you will get 0 because you did not focus on the question. Read the question with understanding. Avoid early excitement. Also, this year in term 1 control test, we had discussed in detail indicators, and then some of learners wrote extrapolation, moving averages, the trend line, the length, for which it was not required. Discuss in detail main objective for the public sector. Please avoid answering the essay that they have not been asked in the examination. We have seen that happening, whereby you come across maybe macroeconomic objective or public sector objective being questioned, but you simply answer reasons for public sector failure. Why are you doing that? Answer the question that has been asked if you choose macroeconomics. Do not bring your very own essay. It is step to find the response being the essay that has not been questioned. Even the additional part is offside, is not the answer that is required. Where do you get such? Avoid seeking for the scope unnecessary in those groups of yours. In those groups that you have on Facebook, having people saying you must pay money to acquire scope. It is wrong. No one is having scope for examination. Just study enough and use your time efficiently. Avoid answering the question that has not been questioned. That will make you to get 0 over 40, and that will lead to you failing the examination. Please answer the question as it being asked. Do not bring your own essay in the examination room which has not been questioned. Discussing detailed reasons for public sector failure, link them to typical problem for experience through public sector provisioning. And then discussing detailed reasons for international trade, both demand and supply. So in this case, remember this essay is too long also. This number 6. The examiner can simply say discuss demand reasons. One can say also discuss supply, but then it can also be a composite to say discuss reasons, both demand and supply. The essay will be too open for you to acquire marks as you need. And then economic pursuit questions. This is question 6 now. Discussing detailed export promotion. So it will depend. The examiner might seek for maybe advantages and disadvantages. The examiner might seek for approaches or methods, advantages, disadvantages. Be very careful. Check even mark allocation as you answer, because approaches might be given 8 marks, and then also advantages might be given 8 marks. That give you 16, and then maybe disadvantages might be given 10 marks. Be very careful as you respond. Look at mark allocation. Unless there is no mark allocation per topic, it's just open, then you answer the way you want. Discussing detailed arguments in favor of protectionism. Remember, there are so many. Be able to answer questions in the arguments in favor of protectionism. And then number 3, discussing detailed demand side approach in promoting growth and development. It is a very wide question. We came across the question in the June examination for supplementary examination, DBE. So that question is very much open. If there are no specifications, you answer everything. You simply exhaust your 26 marks in the meekly of responses. Ensure that you provide information as much as you can to avoid losing marks in there. Discuss in details South African growth and development policies and strategies initiative. So in this case, you have this essay which was added in the examination guideline in 2021 exam guidelines. Here you talk about the GIA, ASGISA, RDP, GIPSA, NSDS, EPWP, NDP, NGP. Those are policies that you need to discuss. So it is very important for you if you if you answer this question, you look at mark allocation also, because the examiner might simply give you those to discuss, not open the essay. But maybe the examiner might simply open the essay whereby you discuss any of them. So it is very important for you to know objectives. The definition for the policy, the objective for that particular policy, and then it is also important for you to know the success and the failure of that particular policy, so that you can easily answer your essay. And then industrial development now. Discussing detailed South Africa's initiative and overs to regional development. In this case, we talk about the likes of Industrial Development Zone, ITZ, Spatial Development Initiative, SDI, Special Economic Zones, SEZ, as well as corridors. So it is very important again here that you are able to define the end over. We are also, you also know what you call those ITZ, SEZ, SDIs, and corridors that are currently in place in South Africa. And you also know the functions or objectives of each end over. That will give you a credit as you respond. It becomes easy if you categorize it like that. And then we continue with indicators now. Discussing detailed economic indicators. You know them, 6 of them. Be able to discuss them. They are very easy in case you choose to answer, say, on question 6. And then discussing detailed social indicators. Also be very mindful of mark allocation here, because the examiner might allocate marks per those that need to be discussed. It either the question will be opened or the question will be clamped together to the point that the examiner will require you to answer only 3 indicators, not all of them. Simply answer according to the instruction of the examiner. Do not bring your own content that have not been questioned in both of these indicators. And then this is an example of an essay. Discuss in detail reasons for public sector failure, linking them to typical problem experienced through public sector provisioning, 26 marks. And then how can the government improve service delivery in your community? That is 10 marks. So this becomes an open question. However, it needs the content under public sector so that you can support it. Introduction, that's when you define public sector failure occurs when the government fails to manage economy and the resources under its control optimally. That gives you 2 marks. And then any other corrective nation would be given marks in there. You have management failure. Remember, under management failure, we talk about the management that lacks experience in there. That does not have relevant experience to get the job done. So ignorance, implementation, e.g. implementation of conflicting policies or wrong policies. And then there is a part in the successful public production relies on long-term accountability. Poor accountability can lead to inefficiencies such as corruption, poor service delivery, etc. Poor accountability is the result of low motivation, poor training, lack of competence. If people are not well trained and educated, they tend to lack competence and they cannot provide services accordingly because they are not informed. Lack of motivation. In this case, we talk about frontline workers really receive incentive for successful service delivery. There is a legal stipulation for service quality or quantity. No measurement of effectiveness or productivity, and few rewards and penalties for it. And then bureaucracy. In this case, we talk about public officials following policies more than providing public goods and services. When rules of procedures are complex, we are dealing with the problem of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy make policies take long to implement, or it is not implemented successfully. Because of the self-interest, bureaucrats can manipulate policies to benefit themselves at the expense of people. Politicians tend to promote policies and spend money on projects as long as they get votes in return. These policies might involve an inefficient allocation of resources. Structural weaknesses. Most of departments are not able to provide proper service because they lack skilled people to do the job. And then expansion of the government's services to previous excluded areas make it difficult to provide a good service. And then special interest groups. In this case, we talk about groups such as labor unions and business groups can also cause government failure. They can also influence government to distribute resources at their favor within the economy at the expense of other people within the economy or within the country. And then additional part. How can the government improve service delivery in your community? Think of your community and assume how can the government improve service delivery in that. The government can assess community needs to avoid wasteful spending. It is very important that content in the public sector is brought back in here. If there can be assessment of social needs, then the government can be able to provide what is needed by the society, not providing what is not needed, because that will be leading to wasteful spending. Monitoring team from the governance must be sent to communities to ensure the quality of service delivery. So the quality should be monitored. What you call the quality assurance should be in place in there to ensure that if ever the service has been delivered, is it in the good quality or it will simply lapse in the short period of time. Government must fight corruption to ensure within municipalities to ensure efficient use of resources. So corruption should be reduced or alleviated or combated completely so that there will be efficient use of resources, not people benefiting themselves at the expense of the society. Municipal officials must be held accountable for and regularly interact with communities. So they should be held accountable, meaning there should be the policy of transparency. So public resources should be communicated to people as they have to be delivered to the society. Then after that, the community is having a power to hold their own leaders accountable. So if ever there is no deliberation of allocation of resources, there will be no accountability process in there. The municipal budget must be transparent to the community. So there must be transparency. So it must be given to people transparent so that they will be knowing and they can expect something out of it. But if it's not deliberated to them, if there's no transparency, it is difficult for them to have better expectations because they are not aware of funds that were allocated for them as a region. And then the conclusion part. The government aims at improving the functioning and efficiency of economy as a whole. And then any kind of what you call conclusion may be accepted only if it's a higher order response and it's a very much critical, not a repetition of the content. So be very careful. Be very careful of an essay. Essay is important like all other sections in the examination. But avoid starting the whole night studying essays and then you go there, you neglect section A and section B. It is very important that you balance yourself and your strategies. For section A, have a method on how to acquire marks. And then section B, have a method on how to get maximum marks in there. And then section C, also have a method. Some of you will start with section C. It's acceptable. Some start with section B. Some start with section C. But then, be very careful. Avoid starting with section C while you know that this question, like you will get nothing out of it. Ensure that you give much effort on the question that you see they will be giving you marks. Verify your responses after writing. Do not simply write and sleep. You simply say you are done with writing. It becomes a problem because you will be sleeping while you did not provide enough information that you even know. Ensure that the 2 hours given to you to write, you maximize it accordingly, use it efficiently. There is no time for sleeping. The examiner will be telling you is 2 hours because he or she knows the depth of the question paper. It is well known. So if you will be writing for 1 hour, 30 minutes or 1 hour and sleep, that is not economics. Ensure that you use your time efficiently. Avoid peer pressure. If you see someone leaving or maybe completing the examination, then you also want to complete. No, it's about you, not about your peer anymore now. Ensure that you score as much as possible marks. Remember, it is very important for you to know or to have a formula on how to pass economics. Strategize in all sections. Number 2, ensure that you have a target. Let your target be clear so that as you plan around, you plan according to your target. It is very much dangerous to go to the examination without any target because that will lead to you falling down. But if you have a target, you plan at a certain percentage, you work around, even your study effort will be around the target that you have set. It is very much necessary that you ensure that you maximize strategies going to the examination. You might know the content and know everything, but if you don't have a proper strategy to respond to the examination, you might go wrong. So ensure that strategies are employed and they should be efficient as you respond to examination questions. So assemble yourself. Ensure that you go there with the confidence and then bring all strategies to answer the question paper and then go through the question paper, answer everything that you need to answer and choose questions smart. Do not choose questions without having to analyze and use the opportunity cost. All the best. I therefore thank you.